Welcome to Wednesday. Luds likes to call it hump day. He's not wrong. But we are going to get back, because we had a little anniversary show yesterday. We are getting back to what? The other 31. We are deep in it now. We're in the 20s, and we are rolling. Today, Stankoven and Rantanen, the Carolina Hurricanes, right now on DLLS. Let's go. It is Wednesday. It is August 27th. This is the DLS Stars podcast. For this Wednesday, we are going to talk about the Carolina Hurricanes today. As you can see, Stankoven, Rantanen, all the things, and lots to talk about. Sean Shapiro is here today, as he was popping in yesterday. Craig Ludwig is here. We are planning to talk to Hurricanes play-by-play announcer Mike Maniscalco here in the opening two segments, although he is not yet connected. So we're waiting on that. And then Joe Ovies, who's part of the Ovies Giglio Podcast in the Raleigh-Durham Triangle area of North Carolina. He'll be our second guest. And if you remember, we actually played a bit of his interview at the end of the regular season with Rod Brindamore, the Hurricanes coach, or actually, end of the playoffs after they got eliminated from the conference final against the Florida Panthers. So we'll talk about all of that. Luds, when you think about the Hurricanes,
I never want to be in one.
Obviously, Rod Brindamore is a huge part of it. Tom Dundon, different style than a lot of NHL owners as far as how he operates and runs the team. Eric Tulsky is a bit of a different hire than some of the traditional, guys that have lived in hockey. And yet they are doing some things that are quite successful. They've been in the playoffs now. I believe it is going on 7 years in a row, trying to make it 8, 3 trips to the conference final. But they keep running into the likes of the Boston Bruins a few years ago and then the Florida Panthers.
Has something to do about that division, I think. It's funny when you mentioned Dundon's name, brings up a story. When he first took over, Sean, you might even know this because you know everything about what's going on. Apparently, he had come in early on when he first took over, and he wanted the trainers to measure the benches that the players sit in. And he wanted to know how wide they were. And one of the trainers, he was kind of very quizzical and wondering what's going on. Well, What he wanted to do is he thought it would be an idea that before games, if the lockers were wide enough, they could have a fan come in and sit in the locker while the player was getting ready for the warm-up and the game. It was going to be
in the dressing room.
In the dressing room, it was going to be a fan experience, and that was kind of like he was thinking all different kinds of ways of building a fan base and all this other kind of stuff. And I don't think nobody's ever accused him of being a big hockey guy, especially in the beginning, right?
Yeah, I mean he was he's been just a billionaire in various things, right? Like he's in the midst of buying the Portland Trailblazers right now for the NBA, which there's a logo. The two logos look pretty funny on that. I actually talked to Dundon about a couple business related things with the Hurricanes about a year and a half ago. And I was asking him, he told me that if he had his way, and he had no issue saying this, he said if he had his way, the Hurricanes jersey, he would sell it like a NASCAR jersey. He would sell the ad space all over the place. He also told me that, in his view, and he had no issue being on the record about this. One of the things I respect about Tom Dundon is he has no issue being as blunt about what he believes. You can have your opinion about him, but he is authentically himself. He has no problem saying, "Hey, I want to sell every inch of the jersey." He has no issue saying, you know what, the easiest way for the NHL to make more money is to add a 9th and 10th playoff team in each conference, and that's what they should do. So whether you like or dislike what Tom Dundon does, I highly respect at least the authenticity, upfrontness of it, where it's not like he's hiding behind his ideas. He's willing to be out front there with them, and he's an interesting cat that way.
No, so you were talking about how when our little buddy is or isn't here, and we kind of segue from question to question. This
left turn.
I'm going to take
Squirrel.
a left turn. I'm going to take a left turn. Only because Sean mentioned jersey. I want to get your guys' opinion on when they, the third jerseys, teams have some pretty cool ones, when they wear the Hartford jersey.
The Whalers.
Because
that is their franchise history.
Right. Your opinion on that. And because I think the jersey and the logo and everything's very cool.
I love it.
Opinion.
The
I
colors,
just don't know. It never blends for me.
because
I'm not saying don't do it. I don't see.
Luds, it's interesting because the Stars have made the decision that they are not going to wear Minnesota North Stars badges and logos, but they own those rights. However, they also signed off on the Minnesota Wild wearing that color scheme when they did their outdoor game, which I know some Stars fans didn't like because the North Stars are Dallas Stars history. When we talk about records, the North Stars are very much included in that. So I guess I'm mixed because I think it's great that they embrace the Hartford Whalers heritage, and you're right, the logo, the colors, it's awesome. On the same token, it sort of feels like a departure of what the Hurricanes are.
Right.
It doesn't feel like they're branding, yet if we want to celebrate the North Stars statistical hit records, they should be able to celebrate the Whalers one. So I'm very wishy-washy on that.
So you really don't care?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't care either.
I'm not beating, a drum or standing on a soapbox saying I'm upset and aggrieved in this one way or another, but I have thoughts on it.
Now, obviously, we're going to hear Sean. And Sean, is part of this about revenue? I mean, selling those jerseys.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100%. It's 100% about selling, being able to sell the merch and sell that and everything like that. My one feeling that's odd about it, Luds, is they wear the Whalers jerseys. It's fine for me. The one weird thing about it is, and I've actually gotten into with the Hurricanes PR guy. I might draw a complete blank on his name right now.
Mike Sundheim.
Mike Sundheim and I have gone back and forth on this, and I respect his opinion on it. But for me, the weird thing is so in Dallas, right? Bill Masterton's jersey is retired, right? Like no one will ever wear that. That is a North Stars retired jersey, will never be worn in Dallas. Number 19 was retired in Hartford for John McKenzie. Keandre Miller is wearing 19 this year for Carolina. It's been happened multiple times where Whalers jerseys and jersey numbers that were retired by the Whalers have been then worn on Whalers jerseys by players for the Hurricanes. So like when the Hurricanes do their Whalers night tonight this season, Keandre Miller will wear number 19. The Hurricanes did not bring the retired numbers with them from Hartford to Carolina. Choice. So for me, it's kind of that weird kind of spot. If you're going to take some of the history, I think you need to retire. I think you need to retire some of the numbers too, right?
Well, I think you need to embrace all the history. Maybe that's why Stars fans that were upset about letting the Wild use the North Stars colors, even though they didn't use the logos or anything, maybe they're saying, no, that's part of the Dallas Stars franchise history. So even if they don't plan on actively using it, that's still theirs. It's not like Minnesota Wild, not to derail this to talk about left turns, talking about the Wild too much, but that's not part of their franchise history, even though it's that city history, which is a whole different argument.
Well, let me put it this way. Wouldn't it feel wrong if the Stars... Now, Bill Masterton is obviously a very sad reason his number is retired.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it just feel wrong if the Stars had been like, hey, we're going to wear a North Stars looking jersey with number 19 on it? Like, that would just feel wrong to me, right?
Well, I'm going to make a soccer reference, and Luds loves this. So Bobby Ryan was a player for FC Dallas. Then he was a broadcaster for them, and then he tragically lost his life a number of years ago. And so they retired his number 19 jersey, but then... and I don't remember the exact year, but they had a player coming up through the academy. His name is Paxton Pomykal. Unfortunately, he's been injured the last few years and I don't know if he's playing anymore. He actually went and approached Bobby Ryan's widow and got permission to wear 19 as an homage to Ryan. That's kind of cool. So if you can do it the right way, sure it's retired, but it's kind of a great way to honor somebody's memory to wear it in a game or for your, for the same club.
Yeah, I'm just always curious. And again, Sean, you know these answers to these questions. I thought the NHL may have some kind of say in all this kind of stuff, but apparently this is all up to the individual organizations.
I think so, with some league oversight. Wouldn't you agree? Like, it's not completely independent.
When you buy a franchise, you buy certain parts of the licensing, right? So like the Hurricanes it's not like the Hurricanes could go and do a Whalers jersey without the NHL permission, just like the Stars couldn't go and do a North Stars jersey, right, without technical NHL permission. So there's there's the things where they kind of have to work together on this. I mean, the whole number thing, Owen, just to kind of go to your point as well, is like there's the spot of, and we're going through a project where we have to give jersey numbers for this organization anyway. So this is fresh in mind, but like
this part covered.
But
again, that's something that came in on Slack, and don't worry about it.
But like to connect this not just to soccer, Owen, but to football, right? Like people are like, all right, well, wearing the number 88 is in
well, it's the Cowboys thing, right?
And 88 is the top receiver, right? That's what you get.
Yes. And it's the history of who's the next one to earn the 88 jersey, or like they don't let anybody with the Cowboys wear Troy's number, or I don't think Emmett's number's been out there. But
when you say they, you mean the Cowboys?
The Cowboys,
okay,
right? The team. That's another thing, especially for Sean's a big fan of Tottenham Hotspur in the EPL. I'm a Liverpool guy. They graduate numbers from one player to like the next one that gets, and it's not just anybody. It's usually a seniority thing or a player that comes in under a big transfer with lots of money. You say, oh, he's going to wear the number 7, so he'll be the next one in a long line of 7s.
So who retired Bobby Orr's number? The league, or was that the Bruins?
No, because other teams have 4. It was definitely Boston.
So it was Boston.
Yes. Yeah. Boston. The only league-wide retired number in hockey is 99. Gretzky's is the only one that's league-wide retired.
I feel like 66 should be too. But.
Okay, so does that mean number 8 will be retired?
No.
Or no? Never.
No.
Gretz is just always going to be the greatest.
Well,
I would say 66 should be up there too.
That's
just my opinion.
Lemieux's the other one for me, because as great as a goal scorer as Ovechkin is, I don't think he's a league-wide. He's a different player than Gretzky is.
I agree with you on
now,
that.
Can you guys both see what Lutz did here?
Yeah, Lutz just gave us a conversation.
I gave us 10 minutes for our guest to get here, and he's still not here.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Mike. I mean, he confirmed it, but
I'm kind of hoping the Hurricanes don't even make the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you. I have lots of Hurricanes talking points, so I can ask you guys this.
I have a Hurricanes story that pops to mind if you want one of those.
Is it less than 2 minutes long?
It can be.
Okay, go ahead.
Can do that.
We'll pick it up on the other side.
Oh, I can always interrupt you.
So I go back to last March, and I'm up in Detroit here, and I'm watching a game. It's actually one of the 9 games Mikko Rantanen played with the Hurricanes, I think, before he got traded from Carolina to Dallas. There's a game in Detroit, and 2 Red Wings rookie defensemen at the time, Simon Edvinsson and Albert Johansson, are on for a shift together. And they got caught in a Hurricane cycle, one shift in the defensive zone, where Carolina cycled and held the puck in the offensive zone for 4 minutes and 28 seconds. That's how long the shift was. Carolina cycled the puck, rebound retrievals, everything like that. 4 minute, 28 second shift for 2 defensemen whose legs are basically gassed and killed and everything like that. And so when I think of Hurricanes hockey, to answer what Lud's initial question was to Owen's initial question was, I think of that. I think of that mentality of 4 minutes, 28 seconds of just wearing the other team down, getting someone stuck on the ice for that long. And that's what the Hurricanes are in my mind when I think about them. And I just remember talking to players after that about those 2 players in particular living through that shift of, like, I think one of them said he had to learn how to breathe through his eyelids, and it was great. So
Did you watch you ever watch America's Got Talent?
Every now and then.
Watch that show?
Sure.
They need to retire that show.
I haven't watched it for a while.
I watched it last night. It stinks.
Is it bad now?
It's bad. I loved it. I loved
that.
The show.
Is a left turn.
Yeah. It's a non sequitur.
It is. Very much so. And I don't have to explain that to you like we do to
But
Sam.
I got us right.
Hi,
up
Sam.
I got us right up the break.
You did. So let's do that next here on DLLS.
That was great, Let's talk about Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Preseason football is underway, and I think it might already be over. But college football is just starting. But you can already make season-long picks, more or less picks, for the 2025 season on Prize Picks. Enter your picks before Week 1 kicks off. So you can. Sorry, this was not a straight ad read. So have you ever won playing?
Sean's
Prize
about to
Picks
read
before?
the cues, the stage
Yes.
directions.
Hey, does Sean got to fill the full 2 minutes here? Or
No, just one.
Okay, well, you're doing a good job, Sean.
So if you have a favorite player, and maybe your favorite player plays for the Cowboys, and maybe he's currently in a contract holdout. I don't know if you can guess how many tackles he's going to have, but you should probably take the under for Thursday night if you're gonna go on that. It's simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Prize Picks puts their members first, so with all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your Prize Picks doesn't hit. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code DLLS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That code DLS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Well done. On the button, let's talk about game time. We're going to talk about the NFL this time. Last time we were talking about college football. NFL games are almost here. Just got to get through Labor Day. Well, I'm going to go on a little family vacation for a couple of days for Labor Day, but then football starts. And guess what? You can get tickets to some of the best games in the NFL using Game Time. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means that you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, so you know what you are paying. There's no surprises when you click to check out. It's super easy. I've used Game Time recently to get some Boston Red Sox tickets, and you know what? It took no time at all. Saw exactly what I was looking for. You know exactly where you're buying them and for how much, and you know that Game Time will credit you $110 if you find a lower price than what you paid. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use the create an account. Use the code DLLS for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. All right. So we continue here.
You know why I'm wearing this shirt today?
No, I can. Usually I can figure it out.
You know this is an old style.
It is. It's the Stars logo back in the mid to late 90s.
Last time I wore this shirt, Brad was watching, or wherever he saw me.
Okay.
He got pissed off.
Why?
Lads.
Oh, because you're not wearing the victory green ones.
Well, the logo.
The
he
new
goes, my
D.
God. So I'm running out of shirts. So I figured hopefully he's watching today. He's
So you're trying to send a message.
I'm trying to send a message.
You're available.
I need a couple more shirts
to get some new shirts.
Anyway, so what were you
absolutely. I'm looking at the history of the Carolina Hurricanes coaching staff, and I'll tell you why. Because the history of the Canes in the last decade and a half or so is really interesting. They missed the playoffs for 9 years in a row from 2009-10 all the way through the 2017-18 season after they had gone to the Eastern Conference Finals in the 2009 playoffs. They have since made the playoffs 7 straight years. I mentioned this earlier. Three Eastern Conference Finals. They've won 10 playoff rounds over the last 7 years. What's the big magic change? Rod Brindamore. And it's easy. So
I thought you meant after where they can't get out of that and move on.
Well,
the magic change is Florida and Tampa.
That's the next part.
Yeah.
They won a Stanley Cup in 06
or something, or 6 or
right. So they won a cup with Peter Laviolette in 2006. Then after the 08 season, they went to Paul Maurice. I'd love to have a chance to have Maurice on the show at some time and ask him how different of a coach he is now than that time, because it was his second stint with the Hurricanes. Remember, he was their coach when they started in North Carolina in 97-03. But obviously, clearly, something has clicked with Maurice from Winnipeg to Florida. Maybe it's the roster.
Wasn't he one of the youngest coaches to
start?
Like
absolutely,
in
yes.
Like
think about
late
this,
20s, early 30s?
30s, I think. Think about this, 1997.
Sean, Google that thing.
So he's been around a long time. Then they had Kirk Muller for 3 years. Then Bill Peters. We all know the story of that going short, although I think that was Bill Peters with the Flames, not with the Hurricanes. And then Brind'Amour from 2018 to the present. And that is a long-winded way of saying that, Luds, a lot of this success, right? Why have they made the playoffs 7 years in a row from the 18-19 season on? It's Rod Brind'Amour.
Yeah, I think for me it's as simple. We've went down this road before. I just think that the team, the players have taken on the personality of Rod. And again, if you had the luxury of watching him play, especially play against him, they play like a mirror image of him, or he wants them to. And again, not just the game itself, but everything that he does. He is your player's coach. I was thinking on the drive down here, I know Gretz tried it one time, and I have a philosophy why, but how many superstars end up being good coaches or coaches at all in the NHL?
Very
right?
few.
Yeah, and again, Sean, the reason, and this was my only analogy years ago when I talked about it, and Gretz didn't do a great job, but I don't know what kind of team he had there in Arizona. But regardless, I think that as other sports, there's so many of the superstar players and great players that, unfortunately for the rest of us, the game comes easy to them. They just go out, they have fun, they show up for practice for an hour a day, they go out there for 2.5 hours, and they're the best players on the ice generally. They don't have to spend the hours trying to survive in the game. They don't have to spend as much time in the gym, even though they do. The game is just easier for them. And I think when you get behind a bench, whatever level it's at, now all of a sudden you got to put your time in. And you're not used to being at that rink and in the locker room for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. They're not used to being in the locker room at 7 o'clock in the morning. I remember when I was working with Hitch and those guys, every morning at 6 o'clock, they're having coffee. My only excuse out of that was I can't stand coffee. I said, I'm allergic. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, I'll get sick. Well, I got out of that, but I had to be in the office by 7. And it's funny. One day I walked in, and I got off track here a little bit, but I remember walking in there. We had Doug Jarvis and Rick Wilson, the assistant coaches. We always made fun of Jarvie. And Jarvie was a great player when he plays. As a matter of fact, he had the Iron Man thing for a long time, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of it, I gave Jarvie, I gave him a little bit of a hard time at the end because he'd take a couple face-offs and he'd change. He'd be done. You know what I mean? And it ended the same. But I walked in there one morning and I opened up the door. It was actually open. I pushed to walk in and I could hear Jarvie talking. So I just kind of stepped back. I stood there for almost 10 minutes and listened to Doug Jarvis tell Hitch how we were going to play that night by giving him the way that they play, the lines, their power plays. Here's what they do. And again, at the time, I'm thinking, well, that guy's always in charge. But anyway, back to my story, is that it takes a special person and Rod Brind'Amour to have the career that he did. It's all that he knows. It's all that he loves and knows. But he pours everything into that every single day. Yeah. And they talk about him, in the fitness testing and getting in early and getting on the bike and all that other kind of stuff. So I think that's what the players see. They're like, wait a second. So we're all doing the VO2 max and the coach is going to be better than I am. I'm not going to make the team. I just think by walking into that room and hearing about how Brind'Amour runs the organization, how intense he is, it can't do anything but carry over to the players.
Yeah. And Sean, he's played like that for his entire life, let alone just his coaching career.
Luds, do you think, because it's one of those, we think about the NHL, and it's always if you want to know what trends work in the NHL, you typically look at the teams that make the conference finals, and you start to see teams copy part of that, right? Like it's very much a copycat league. And now Carolina is, you talk to players, I talk to players all the time about how difficult it is to play Carolina. Defensemen all the time talk about, hey, how much they're going to punish us on the forecheck and how difficult it is, how ready you have to be. Is it simply that Rod is not, is it simply that Rod's personality is not replaceable, or why haven't we seen more teams become? There's a lot of teams that would love to be the copycat.
Yeah, why don't they copy? That's a great question.
Why haven't we seen more time? Is it just, in your view, is it a construction thing? Is it not the right person in charge? Why haven't we seen, we see Vegas win and all of a sudden everyone starts going to more of their defensive system? We see teams, we see what some other teams do, and we see other teams start taking parts of their neutral zone and everything like that. We see a lot of the 1-3-1 from when Tampa, a lot of people start taking that right away. Why is no one go and copy what Carolina does as religiously as some of the other systems? Is it a difficulty thing? Is it you can't replace Rod? What is your view on that?
I think coaches have their own philosophies when they come in, and they think that they can reinvent the wheel sometimes. But here's my belief is that the players that play for Carolina are knockoffs of Rod Brind'Amour. And you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to be Sebastian Aho, who is a 20-30 goal scorer, 190 point, whatever he is, he still plays the Rod Brind'Amour style. You know what I mean? And you have to they have found 20 guys, 23 guys that will play that way. And it's not easy to find those guys and that are good players and skaters. Nowadays, everybody's a good skater. So now you just got to get somebody that wants to go into the fight every single shift because they've got their leader that goes into the fight every single shift. So I think the buy-in is there, but I also do think that there are coaches, they just basically wear you down. That's what I think. As a matter of fact, I even wrote down as a question to our guest that we don't know where the hell he is, but I was going to say, does he need to tweak his system a little bit? Does he need to tweak
fair
it
question.
a little more puck possession-ish? You know, because he is straight line guy. That's why Stank fits into this, right? I mean, he is the perfect guy for that team. If they want, why is he the piece that when the whole Rantanen deal went down, they mandated that it was
why
him
over Maverick Bourque?
And then what did they do? They signed him to how many years did he get? 7 or 8
years.
Okay,
and he hasn't even finished his ELC
exactly
yet.
Because Logan knows one way to play. Before he even got to the Carolina Hurricanes, he played the Rod Brind'Amour way. Now, is he going to live up to 30-goal scorer? I don't know. But he's going to give you effort every single shift that he's out there, and that just bleeds over to their whole team. So basically, for me, what I think Carolina does, they find ways to push teams out of the game.
Yeah.
If you can't keep up with their pace, which surprises me when they get to the Atlantic. You know, again, there's such good teams over there.
Mm-hmm.
But that style over the course of 7 games, I believe that his philosophy is we're going to wear these guys down.
I mean, look at their playoffs last year.
Here's my problem with that team. I don't know about their goaltending.
Well, that's a very valid question. So they walk over the Devils in the first round. Then they make pretty easy work of the Caps. It was 5 games. And then they get worked by the Panthers for the second time in the conference final in 3 seasons.
You know.
And Panthers are great. Why is it that a team that is in your face and such a hard skating team, is it literally balancing in the playoffs on whether or not Freddie Anderson can stay healthy?
I think it's the will to push people out of the game, and they can't push back. And now the other thing is, I think with a team like Florida, that is more of a puck possession team, they can't get their game going because I think Florida has the puck more often than Carolina does. And then the way that they smother you in their forecheck that Florida has, they're just a well-oiled machine. You know, and again, if they can keep Connor McDavid and Draisaitl and those guys kind of off balance, they can do it, you know, as a group to any team.
And I think they can handle any style. I don't think it's just one. Sean, you mentioned we were talking about Stankoven as part of the key cog of that Rantanen trade, and then signing him to a big deal. Why do you think, or what do you think Eric Tulsky brings? Because he's a different thinker than sort of the typical, well, you used to be a player, you're a hockey mind. Because I feel like there's some real sort of new age Moneyball style movements. He signed Jackson Blake, who's still on an ELC, lots of control, to an 8-year deal. He did it with Stankoven. He is investing in his young talent very early.
There's also been, and this Rod sets, I think there's 2 different things about that organization. I think there's Rod Brind'Amour sets the tone from the coach and players down. And then I think the tone is set by Tom Dundon from the top of this is most NHL owners, let's just call it what it is. Most NHL owners, their NHL team is their plaything. It is not it is, hey, I've made my money in other walks of life, and this is where this is my luxury purchase. And I think Tom Dundon looks at his team a little bit more. I want to continue to take a business mind to this. And, like, it's not just like people look at from the Hurricanes perspective. It's so getting the Stankoven deal done the way they did. That's taking advantage of a player who honestly was shaken by the trade from Dallas. I think Sam spoke to him for a story here at DLLS about he was shaken by it. I mean, that's a deal that Logan Stankoven left money on the table for that deal. Like, I think we can all agree upon that. So you take advantage of that. The other thing the Hurricanes have done is, and I look at this quite often with my work over at Elite Prospects, they typically draft 5 to 6 Russians every single year. And one of the thought processes, honestly, that kind of tends to happen with that is because there is no formal agreement between the KHL and the NHL, when you draft Russians, you hold their rights until they're 27. And so if you're going to there's a lot of business model perspective from a Hurricanes perspective of you're going to go and add to your prospect pool. You're going to bring Russians in. You can take the time. And if they don't develop, you didn't have to spend $1.8 million on an entry-level contract for them to develop. You just got to basically subcontract that business out to the KHL.
Which is kind of good considering that they have ruffled feathers with their AHL affiliates in the past.
Oh, I mean, but that's one of the other reasons that they don't think the AHL, not that for them, the AHL team hasn't mattered much, right? Like them and the Chicago Wolves have had their fighting and everything like that. And
well, they don't have the Charlotte Checkers anymore, which is an absolute crime, but that's a different story.
Well, that's another business story, though. Like, I know because I've done some reporting on that. That is something where there was a great relationship there until that deal ended. And it was a lot of hey, this is dollars and cents, and I don't know the exact amount, but that's one of the reasons the Charlotte Checkers and the Hurricanes are no longer together and why the Florida Panthers happily jumped on that train there.
It's so weird that it's so close between Charlotte and Raleigh that they're not affiliated, but that's the way it is. So Chicago makes perfect sense. All right. Up next, let's see if Joe Ovies joins us, our second guest here on our Carolina Hurricanes Day. Here, the other 31 on DLLS. Perfect. But we got Sean first.
Me first, right?
What if I told you?
What if I told you the Cowboys show is taking a trip to Vegas? And I'm hoping it sets a precedent for some others. But yeah, November 15th to 18th,
Did he dead freeze there?
Truth and travel. You can join our boys the Dallas Cowboys and the Raiders, as I don't say it nearly as well as Sam. So Sam's a better voice actor. We'll give it to him.
More practice. That's all. He was terrible the first time he did it.
Way more practice. But our DLS Cowboy show is going there. You can go and you can talk to Clarence. You can talk to John. You can talk to John, our old producer, in person. I mean, it's unfortunately we're adding, our producers have changed, and so whatever a producer we have right now will probably be on this trip this time next year. So that's so you can see John and talk to him about the Bruins and everything like that, since this is a Stars show and I'm going to turn the Cowboys conversation into that. Plus, awesome event. It becomes, you get a better deal by being a diehard, I believe, and everything like that. So go do that. Go watch some football in Vegas. Talk to John, and then when you're there, if you go on that trip because of what I've said right now, when you're there, I just need you to send an email to GM Ben and say, hey, that was awesome. I bet the Stars guys could do something really similar and even better. So
makes a good case.
Yes.
Yeah, first time.
Yep.
What about some merch, though? Don't forget DLS shirts.
There's merch. Yes, there's merch. Great shirt that Owen's wearing. We've got the amalgamation shirt that we say that just to rub it in Sam's face since he can't pronounce that word, as the Jeff Merrick approved Nolan Ryan shirt. The Jeff Merrick approved Nolan Ryan shirt down there that I hope we sent one to Jeff and got him to wear on the sheet. I hope we get on that marketing. Let's do that. The big Tex shirt up there that's going to scare Sam and give him nightmares. And then of course their Stars shirts, the Otter shirt that I kept talking over, came on and disappeared again. You can get that one. Really good story on Jake Ottinger right now, by the way, if you become a diehard from Sam about kind of how things worked. And I think Owen's giving me the thumbs up because I did a good job. So
you did a great job. All right. Our second guest is here today. So let's welcome in the host of the Ovies and Giglio podcast. It's Joe Ovies. Hey, Joe, how you doing today?
How's it going, guys? I was enjoying the merch.
I appreciate
these independent outlets, man. We got to find ways to get our stuff out there. I might steal a few. Who knows?
I love it. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the other guys. I first discovered you because you and your other Joe had Rod Brindamore and Eric Tulsky on at the end of the season. I believe it was post conference final, and you guys were in a room with some weights in it, and Rod chirped you both about it's never too late to start picking them up, which was hilarious. But I knew we had to try to have you guys on to talk about this club because both the Canes and the Stars find themselves in very similar waters, which is, and I thought this point was made. We were doing our Ottawa Senators summer show the other day, and Julian McKenzie said, the Stars have been really good and knocking on the door, but they don't want to end up the San Jose Sharks. And he wasn't necessarily taking a shot at San Jose, but those were some really good teams that never won a cup. And now it's 7 years in a row. The Hurricanes have made the playoffs. I did the math. They've won 10 playoff series in that run, 3 conference finals, but they keep running into either the Bruins or the Panthers. And the Stars are kind of in the same boat. They got to get past the Edmonton Oilers.
It's interesting. I've been living here in the Triangle since 1995, before you even had the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes were this kind of odd squad that would bring the town together in 2002 when they went on this random Stanley Cup run with Paul Maurice as the head coach. And then obviously in 2006 when they won the whole thing. But then they've missed the playoffs in between that, and obviously they missed the playoffs after they won the Stanley Cup. They didn't get back into the playoffs until 2009. Again, Paul Maurice had come back to be the coach of that squad. They get to the Eastern Conference Finals. They get knocked out. So I'm bringing up all this context because I think the Carolina Hurricanes, you have your old heads like me, and then you have the new fans that had no reason to follow the Canes for a 10-year stretch from that 2009 squad making the Eastern Conference Finals to not making the playoffs until 2019. And they were with a bunch of jerks, which was its own phenomenon, right? And Rod Brindamore being the head coach and all the warm, fuzzy feelings that go along with that. So what I'm getting at is you have this line of demarcation from people like me that appreciates and would rather be talking about the Carolina Hurricanes on a consistent basis, banking on playoff runs like we just had, even if it was considered a year in which their window had closed. Here they were knocking on the door again to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. I want this. I think it's elevated the expectations around the Carolina Hurricanes. It's elevated the expectations with the fans and those who cover them. So I like this, even if it hasn't resulted in getting to the finals. Now, what's keeping them from getting to the finals?
By the way, that's a very mature sports fan take, I might add, right? We can't win the championship every year.
You can't. And I don't look, man, I mean, you're in Dallas, so it doesn't seem to matter if your football team is good or bad. You talk about them all the time, right?
That is very true.
We're in the content business, and hey, man, Jerry's providing a lot of content. It just so happens that for us in the Carolina Hurricanes, we're getting content from a one-of-a-kind fixture in hockey in Rod Brindamore, a one-of-a-kind fixture here in North Carolina because he won the Stanley Cup. And look, I'm a travel hockey dad. When I'm not doing this podcast, I'm the manager for a Junior Canes 14U squad. You know who else has a kid in the Junior Canes? Rod. He's around Invisalign Weight Competition Center all the time. He's like any other dad, right? So it's a unique situation here in the Triangle with the Carolina Hurricanes. But to answer the question, well, how do you get over this? It's kind of like a twofold thing. It just so happens that you're having this run while your former coach, who probably likes sticking it to you a little bit, in Paul Maurice, is on an all-time heater. Yeah. I mean, let's think about this. 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row? 2 Stanley Cups? I mean, what are you going to do, right? Sometimes it's just their moment. It's their window. It's like what we've seen in the NBA. It just happened to be Michael Jordan's time and the Bulls' time. It just happened to be LeBron's time or what LeBron dealt with. Oh, I might be the best one out here, but it just so happens that Steph Curry is doing this with the Golden State Warriors. Sometimes it's just another franchise's time. But what gives the Florida Panthers an edge that the Carolina Hurricanes don't have? And we saw that in the elimination game in the Eastern Conference Finals where they've got a mental edge. Now, it's easy to have that mental edge when you've done it before, and the Canes haven't. But you saw a team with an opportunity to make this a real series, and the Panthers, who've done this multiple times, never wavered. And as my colleague, columnist Luke DeCock at the News and Observer so rightfully said when we were doing our little after post-game shows, the Canes blinked. You can't blink in that moment. And at some point, the leadership beyond Rod, we're talking Sebastian Aho, we're talking guys they've invested in in Andrei Svechnikov, they can't blink. And that's what the Panthers have managed to continue to do. And we'll see if that growth trajectory for Sebastian Aho, who keeps going up against it, what drives him? Can Svechnikov, A, stay healthy and consistently be at a high level of what you expect and what you're paying for when you get to the postseason? And of course, there's I think you had mentioned goaltending earlier. There is some question as to how long they're going to kick the can when it comes to the goalies. I don't think the goalies are the reason why they got knocked out by the Florida Panthers, but you do feel like the bill is coming due for Freddie Anderson. And what exactly do you have in Peter Kochetkov, who has a very high ceiling, but that floor is pretty low? He's very inconsistent. And when he's good, man, he's on. You were like, why don't you just hand the franchise over to him? But then he has some nights where you're thinking, man, what's happening here? How much longer is he going to have with this franchise?
Well, I had a whole bunch of questions. Joe just answered all of them. But listen, Joe, you started out by saying odd, and then you said squad, and I don't even want to say this out loud, but I immediately thought of Rod the Bod. And that's not what I'm saying, but that's what I thought of. And you mentioned Rod's name numerous times. So this reminds me a little bit back here in Dallas when our owner had asked, Bob Gainey, the GM at the time, what do we need to do to get past the Detroit Red Wings? Well, it ultimately worked out being that Colorado beat the Red Wings, and so that took care of that.
You didn't have to play them.
But our thing was Brett Hull. So does Carolina need to find that player, and was it Mikko Rantanen? Or do you think it's a tweak that Rod has to make to help get his team to the next level?
Well, since you referenced the interview we did with Rod Brind'Amour during the offseason, the beginning of the offseason with the exit interviews, he is convinced, adamant of the most belief possible that his system works. So much so that he will tell you that Panthers ripped us off. They just happen to be doing better. I mean, he straight up said, go look at what they do. Go look at what's happening across the league. They're just doing what we did. So if that's your belief, then it gets to what you're asking. Is it talent? And I think there's a tendency, and I think this is what adds to some interesting dynamics here in the triangle, because we're predominantly a college sports town. You got NC State, you got North Carolina, you got Duke, Wake Forest is just down the way. I can keep going. And what ends up happening is you kind of train your fans to kind of fall in love with players. In the old days, you had them for 4 years in basketball. You had them for 4 years, maybe 3 years in football. And you have this like attachment to them. They're forever with you. There's a little bit of carryover with that when it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes, and that we almost have a collegiate-like affinity for the players. But it's pro sports. You can't do that. And you truly believe that this is the guy that's going to get you over the hump. And I can tell you bluntly, they just don't have the talent level to get beyond where they've been hitting, which is the Eastern Conference Finals. You expect, I get back to Andrei Svechnikov. It's fortunate that Svechnikov is in this market because I can imagine him in Toronto. You know what I mean? I can imagine him in New York coming up short or kind of disappearing a little bit at times. How that would get treated, that never happens here. Same thing with Sebastian Aho. I remember a long time ago, Eric Stahl, who was, again, Stanley Cup champ and one of the greats for the Hurricanes, was annoyed at some of the coverage that he was getting during those dark years here at the end with Eric Stahl. And I remember just kind of thinking, dude, if you think it's bad here, go up to Toronto and see how they're treating you with, you being the captain and whatnot. So there's a little bit of that angle in that we overvalue the players because we want to love them. It's as simple as that. And if you believe in your system and it's been successful for you in the regular season, and clearly it's been successful for you in the postseason to a certain point, what's keeping you from that jump? And it's talent. Now, how do you get that talent, right? You can get it on the ground floor with some guys, and everybody's excited about Logan Stankoven, right? People are excited about Jackson Blake. They got Sebastian Aho at an early deal. They had Andrei Svechnikov at an early deal. But how do you go and acquire guys that have a little sandpaper, have been there before, can elevate you? How do you do that? And there's been some hits and misses and some misinterpretations as to why they haven't been able to get somebody like Jake Gensel to stick around, or the Mikko Rantanen saga. And eventually they ended up with Ehlers, which is great, but it took a little while for that to happen. It wasn't a no-brainer.
We have a lot more to ask Joe, but we have to do a quick ad break. So don't go anywhere. More with Joe and the Hurricanes next here on DLLS. All right, but first let's talk about being a diehard. The QR code will be popping up on your screen shortly. If you want to scan that, that will get you to our website, alldls.com, and you can sign up to be a diehard. Why should you do it right now? Well, we have a special sale going on. $36, which is more than 50% off the regular annual subscription rate, and that gets you a full year for the new subscribers of coverage of DLS for Cowboys, Mavericks, Stars, Rangers, Dallas Wings, you name it, they're all there, and you get all the writing from all of our big four with Sean and Sam for the Stars and Clarence with the Cowboys, Joe, or not Joe anymore, it's Jeff. Joe went over to the Morning News. Still our buddy, though. Jeff with the Rangers, and, of course, Tim Cato with the Mavs. Mavs, by the way, just had a great show with Mark Cuban on in our studio yesterday. Really fascinating stuff. If you haven't seen that already, go to the YouTube channel, watch it, listen to it on our podcast platforms. Mark said some really interesting things about selling the Mavs, the whole Luka saga, and on and on. It was really fascinating. In addition to that, well, you get a free t-shirt when you sign up to be a diehard of your choice. If you do the football sale, you get one of the new football club shirts. And it's right there. So there's the deal. That's one of the 3 branded Cowboys style shirts for DLLS. But you also can get in on a new ball knower bonus. Now, if you've been watching our show for a while, you know that All City likes to have this game, ball knower bonus, every now and then, where you go to our merchandise store, you spend at least $25 or more, and you make a pick on a certain thing. Well, right now on their website, you go to alldls.com, look at the promotions, you can find ball knower bonuses for Colorado, Georgia Tech, because you know they're big Buffalo fans out in Denver, Texas, Ohio State coming up in a couple of days. You can also look at things like the Cowboys and Eagles, whether you want to go with Eagles total passing yards, more or less, some other NFL ones. If you get it right, you will get a gift card for 100% of your order value. You basically double your money. So go to alldls.com, be a diehard, do the ball knower bonus. All right, let's bring Joe back on the screen. Sean, your turn, sir.
Yeah, Joe, I wanted to kind of touch on something because you mentioned how Rod is convinced that the Panthers are using they're basically doing what he does, right? And that's a fair way to an extent, but I watch the Panthers play, and Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, they do play the same as everyone else, but they do have different leashes on life when it comes to style of play. And I know Mikko Rantanen spoke of when he came to Dallas of having a little bit when he went to Carolina. He didn't use the word non-negotiables, but I will basically translate from playeries to journalist of he felt there was some there's some more freedom to be Mikko Rantanen in Dallas than there was in Carolina. I'm curious, and just with Ehlers, because he's someone where we hear all about, hey, he's going to be a great fit in Carolina and everything like that. When it comes to looking at what Rod does with this team and where it goes, does he need to give a little bit more of that leash to certain players to be themselves? Because that's how I look at Florida when I look at the two side by side.
I mean, you bring up Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, come on. They just making those in a factory? I wasn't aware of.
Yes.
You know what
Yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to be cute about it. I'm just saying, well, I mean, heck, man.
No.
Look.
Yeah.
It's a valid question. It is a valid question. It is something that has kind of Rod has earned a little bit of a reputation. So where do you want to start? You want to start with the Mikko crap, or do you want to start with like what is it that they're missing, or the
let's put it
conversations.
Let's put it this way.
Obviously
the Ehlers comes in and he's gonna. To me, it looks like he's gonna be a great fit there. I look at it from an outside. I think Ehlers is gonna be a great fit, right?
If he stays healthy.
For me. And so when you look at what happened with Mikko Rantanen and why it didn't fit with Mikko Rantanen.
What happened with Mikko?
He had spent a decade in one spot, ended up in a new place, and was, from my read on it, he didn't want to be here.
You know, you could talk about system all you want, but if you don't want to, if you have zero buy-in to being here, well, what do you expect? You know? So I'm the reason why I'm being like this about Mikko Rantanen is I think he is an outlier, and we talk about these things.
Yeah.
He was, to your point, he was probably thinking this ain't going to go the way that it ended up going. And I would love to know a real conversation between him and his agent and how it ended up that he ended up at Carolina, right? Completely blindsided. And then he pouted. And he didn't want to be here. And the Canes did their best to move on. And I think it worked out for everybody in the end, because I heard you guys talking about Logan Stankoven earlier. I mean, he's fit right in, right?
Yep.
People are very, very high on him. He's got his contract and everything else. Also, you know, in terms of system and freedom and leash and all that kind of stuff, I mean, I'm actually using the notebook from the playoffs. Back in May. What can you guys remind me what Mikko Rantanen didn't do for like a 2-week stretch there in the postseason?
Talk about scoring goals.
Was he not scoring goals there? Isn't that the point?
He did pretty well in the early part of the playoffs.
He did early in
early portion, but if he's a guy, what happened when it came, you know, when you're putting it on the table, if you will, right?
He wasn't the only one, but he was front and center.
He was front and center.
Yep.
That's, you know, the whole thing was now that he's free of this stuff, watch him cook, right? Well, he didn't cook. If anything, the guys that the Canes got in return, they were the ones who were cooking when it was all said and done. So the Mikko thing, that one's a little bit dicier because, again, if you don't want to be here, what's the old Reba McEntire? I can't make you love me, right?
Yeah. Well,
and
Joe, to just real quick, just to kind of I think there's one of the funniest things that I saw about this past season was people saw what happened with the Rantanen thing, and people were like, "Oh my God, Eric Tulsky's getting bullied for this." If I told someone before the season they could trade Martin H's and Jack Drury for that haul, you would have been like, "Oh my God, how did you get that done?" So like, I think there's a couple Hurricanes narratives that got way blown out of proportion that I'm defending Eric Tulsky on right here.
And I think you're hitting on why I'm a little agitated. Why Canes fans agitated.
No.
It's because these narratives are cooked out of nowhere, man. And again, I'll tell you guys what I'll say on my own show, and I'll go on social media. It's like we're so caught up in trying to have this, you know, big, bold takes, and to the point where I'm watching, I forgot who it was. It might have been Spittin' Chicklets after the whole Mikko Rantanen saga. It's like, well, the Canes have to shut down their franchise. Like, come on, guys. Come on. Or like Empty Netters or whoever, like, they should be embarrassed and all this other stuff. And it's like, let's see how this plays out first, right? So I get a little bothered by that. Or what ended up happening with, oh, well, the Canes are boring. Based on what? Based on what? Like, I don't understand this. Like, what makes them, quote unquote, boring? I mean, if you're a fan of the Hurricanes, certainly exciting because they're out there suffocating teams. And it just so happened that the team who ends up winning the Stanley Cup, getting back to the earlier point, well, they're kind of playing the same way the Canes do, just at a higher level. That's suddenly not boring, right? So, yes, they're a little agitated to those types of things. Now, to answer your question about Rod and the reputation and things like that, I do think it's valid to criticize the shot totals and what exactly we are seeing, right? You can throw at me high danger chances and all this other stuff, and I'm not dismissing it, but I'm also watching and I'm seeing not great quality shots.
Yeah,
they're going right into somebody's chest. I mean, again, I'll go back to youth hockey. It's like, you know, dealing with, I'll shout out my guy, my fellow hockey dad, Justin. It's like sometimes you can be a little generous with a shot. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I think we kind of tend to do that. We get a little generous with the shot generation by the Carolina Hurricanes. And if you're not putting them where they need to be, it doesn't matter. I would rather take 20 shots on net, high quality, getting them past, than 60 shots on net and coming out, you know, having lost 3-1 or whatever it is. I also think the power play needs to be looked at on a serious note. Again, it gets back to experience, mental toughness, not blinking. It's not lost on me when things ended for the Carolina Hurricanes. If I remember correctly, they were 0 for 6 on the power play in that game. The Panthers got the power play goals they needed. And that's been a consistent issue for the Carolina Hurricanes since Rod Brind'Amour has been here. But that gets back to the central question. Is it talent or is it scheme? Clearly, there's something to the scheme because they're here. They're routinely here. It's not, you know, when Greg Wyshynski has to make a bold claim, a bold preseason prediction, and the bold claim is, well, I don't think the Carolina Hurricanes are going to make the playoffs, to that being a bold claim, you got to remember, if you told me that was a bold claim back in 2011, I'd be like, yeah, dude, they're not going to make the playoffs. What are you talking about? So this, to me, gets back to the talent. Now, what is keeping the Carolina Hurricanes from getting the talent? That can be all that, you can go all sorts of ways with that. Like, why doesn't Mikko Rantanen want to be here? Is it the town? Is it, it's not metropolitan? Okay, that's valid. Jake Gensel, that was a situation where I think you get to talk about Tom Dundon and his relationship with agents. Why is it that every contract negotiation seems to be like pulling teeth? And you might have had Jake Gensel if you just kind of came to the term well ahead of where it got to when he finally was able to start getting other offers. And why did it take this long with Ehlers? He took his time. Did you play it right? Brent, you mentioned Eric Tulsky. For as smart as he is, and I believe in what Eric Tulsky is doing, I believe he has an edge on other NHL teams based on his analytics alone. But he's learning on the job to have a particular bedside manner that is required to be a general manager and work the phones, work those relationships, and get the better end of it. That's something that Don Waddell did a very good job of while he was with the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm not saying Tulsky can't do it. I'm just saying that it's something that Tulsky's going to have to develop over time as he is the general manager. But right now, that three-headed monster of Tom Dundon, Rod Brind'Amour, and Tulsky, I can just point to the results and tell you it's working more often than not.
Sean's got to follow up on Dundon, so we're going to let him.
I'm just curious.
If you and I are as entertained watching
can I just take
two,
off then?
You probably could. But if we're
Between
entertained,
these two guys, I could go get on the ice now.
I'm sure that the viewers are enjoying it, though. Go ahead, Sean.
I enjoy when I'm slightly agitated because of my question. I always enjoy that. But I'm curious, we know Tom Dundon has ties to the Dallas area. He's someone who made a lot of his money in the Dallas area before buying the Hurricanes, and the Dallas area has some owners, one that is famously botching a football organization that is famously botching a negotiation with his best player.
And by the way, Joe, for full disclosure, Sean is a Cowboys fan.
And so we had
you're a real one, man. If you're sticking with the Cowboys even to this point, man, you're a real one.
And so then yesterday we actually had the former owner of the Mavericks on I was on our Mavericks show yesterday, Mark Cuban, who is someone who was very hands-on in things, or at least gives the image of being very hands-on, depending on which way you do it. What, if in your perspective, when you look at the way Tom runs things, do you see things he may have taken from being in that Dallas area, the influence of seeing how those individuals ran their franchises before he became his own owner?
Hey, Joe, I just saw you take a drink, so you're hydrated, and you got a deep breath because Sean talked for 3 minutes. So just take us out, please.
You guys, well, I was going to say, do you guys have a heart out?
We have a soft close at the top of the hour.
Huh?
We don't have to end it too, but we have the overtime. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Keep going, Joe.
I was again, okay, sorry. If you tell me you need to be hard out, I'll do it. No, yes. The simple answer to this is yes. There's a recurring joke with Carolina Hurricanes fans that if it's something that the Dallas Stars are doing, chances are we'll probably see it at Lenovo Center at some point in time. But I commend Tom Dundon because he has vision. It's something that this area needed in terms of professional sports ownership. There's a complete overhaul happening right now at Lenovo Center that is well overdue. We're talking bunker suites, new amenities, bars, etc. They're going to completely transform the outside of it to make it a multi-use complex. Where have I seen that before? Yes, in Dallas, right? You mentioned Mark Cuban. I think that is another person that Tom Dundon has kind of taken some cues from. Highly successful guy, interested in tech, understands the value of sports franchises, the valuations continuing to go up, and he saw an opportunity in the Portland Trail Blazers that we'll see what he does with that NBA franchise. So, yeah, I think Tom Dundon has taken a lot of his cues from where he's from, with the owners that continuously dominate the headlines, and also has a hands-on approach, just like Mark Cuban has a hands-on approach. You can say what you want about Jerry Jones and his hands-on approach, but I will say this about our conversations with Tom, and I think it leans more towards the Mark Cuban side of things. He wants all the information. If you feel that this would make the team better, he wants you to argue it. He might not agree initially, but if you argue it and you convince him, he's down with it. Same with the other thing. He might want something, but he's been talked out of it by Brind'Amour or Tulsky. So he just simply wants the information. And if you can prove it to him, he'll be down with it.
You got one more? I got plenty.
Plenty.
Actually, hold on. Before we do have to do a quick TV close. So for those of us viewing, or those of you viewing on our television platforms, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on the pod, and check out alldlls.com as we head into overtime.
What I was going to ask Joe, there the logo goes away.
That's right.
I was waiting for
You're
that
perfect.
logo to go away. I'm a little.
We've only done this a year, lads.
I'm a little concentrate. I concentrate on the decor for some reason. So over the last couple of years, what is it? Pesce, Shea, Burns, Orlov, all out, right? Are you satisfied with what they've done now? They bring in Keandre Miller, and then I don't know. Can you tell us about this Lakeshin, I think his name is, kid? Lakeshin?
Are you talking about Alexander Nikishin, the Russian?
That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. I think this is what gets into what we were talking about before with Dundon and Tulsky and Rod. If Rod had his way, I mean, Brett Pesce doesn't go anywhere, right? I think we asked Rod pointed questions about Brent Burns and age, but there was something about Burns' leadership in the room, playing out of position, that Rod gave him a little extra leeway on that kind of stuff. And I thought his answers about fans being mad at Burns getting burned oftentimes on the ice, what was the justification for it? If there's a soft spot for Rod, it's you have to earn his trust, and that talent isn't going to just override that. I did not like, it's funny, during the playoffs, I think it was in the Capitals series when they finally moved heaven and earth to get Nikishin here from Russia. And there was an opportunity to play him because of Jalen Chatfield's injury and some other things that had come along, that just let the young Russian cook, man. Let's go, right? And he went with Scott Morrow a little bit more than that. And the reason why is because of, he's had more experience and things like that. And I remember asking Rod about that first game, and I said, from my just basic eyes, I mean, I don't pretend to be a super hardcore hockey knower here. I said, from my basic eyes, Nikishin did okay. All things considered, when you put everything into context, I thought he did all right. And he absolutely dismissed me. Just like, no. He was bad. He was terrible. I was like, okay, fine, so be it. But it was his first game in the playoffs, So I think they've handled the defense as best they can given the realities of the market. You can't pay everybody. So you're going to trust your system. If you're Tulsky, you're going to trust your system and that you can find the market inefficiency and get somebody that can maybe not be Brett Pesce, but somebody who can give you some sort of above replacement or at replacement level, right? For the contract and everything else. That's why they could never quit Tony DeAngelo. I mean, as much as I couldn't stand Tony DeAngelo because I didn't think he was all that good, it only cost him $1 million. And you put him with heck, man. You put me out there with some guys, and it'll be, you put me out there with Jacob Slavin, I might look okay. You know what I'm saying? We saw this in the Four Nations tournament. So I think with Miller, who's going to be that top pairing, I think with the continued development of Chatfield, who I think is excellent, and he was clearly missed because of his injury in the postseason. I don't know how the defensive pair is going to play out where you put Nikishin, without Orlov, there was that whole Russian connection to help you out. But, maybe as the summer goes on and the English gets better, that was another issue that kind of kept Nikishin from really getting into the lineup, was the language barrier. But we'll see if that's over, they can overcome that once we get to the start of the season. Look, man, I don't pretend to act like having to balance all this cap money and everything else is easy. I do think that the Carolina Hurricanes were looking at this offseason with all of the cap space they had freed up to make some real big swings. It just so happened that it was a rather soft free agency market. And then some of the guys like Mitch Marner, who I know for a fact, they were like, we're taking a run at this dude. Goes back to the conversation we were having with Mikko Rantanen. You might want Mitch Marner. Don't mean Mitch Marner want to come here, even though you might have the money. And I think the Canes are learning that. I think Dundon is finally learning that. I think Tulsky's learning that. And I hope that this year and going forward, it's more about fit than going out and getting this big splash. And I think that's kind of what they have this upcoming season. I still think goaltending is the biggest issue, but ultimately I think they're getting the fit more than anything else on defense.
Boy, Joe, you're serving me up on a platter, and I appreciate that because I have one more Carolina question, then we have to ask you about the Stars as we run out of time here. They said, and I don't know if you believe them or not, that Freddie Andersen is actually healthy now. That was the big narrative as he came back, was something was wrong. It's been corrected. Now he's poised to be, yeah, I know. I don't know if you believe it either, but that's what I read. Is Freddie Andersen healthy is the big question mark, but is he the guy that can lead Carolina over that hurdle, whether it's the Panthers or whoever else they face? Is Kochetkov the guy, or is there a huge question mark and they just don't know who it is?
That part. As somebody who's had to take back my thoughts on Kochetkov, I thought with Freddie Andersen's ups and downs and availability, and there's been all sort like serious health issue availability, like the blood clots, or just nagging injury issues. I thought it was time to just give Kochetkov the reins, let him do his thing, and see where it goes. To see it, and he's on a team friendly deal too. So I thought, all right, let's make that work. It's not there. I don't think that Kochetkov is the answer right now. Although I say that knowing that goalies are voodoo, man. You know, like we sit here and we talk about quarterback play and starting pitchers. There's almost a predictability and a reliability on that. With goalies, you don't know when the light bulb goes on sometimes with goalies, right? So that's why I think Andersen has been so crucial to the Canes in that he's very reliable when he's available. I know that's kind of contradictory, but you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
When
he's healthy and playing well, I mean, well, that's not the right way to put it. When he's healthy and up to speed, he's very good.
It's actually a debate that Luke DeCock and I from the News and Observer debate all the time, in that he's convinced that the players know they cannot rely on Kochetkov, or that they just simply know that they got something in Freddie, so they play better in front of Freddie and now all that kind of stuff. And there's psychology that goes with it, and I understand. But the answer to that is we know what these guys are. However, Eric Tulsky's told us this several times, and I believe him. Can you just show me all the Vezina winners that go on and win Stanley Cups? You know, it's not the reason why teams win the Stanley Cup. And this sounds very basic, but sports is not complicated. You win games doing one of two things. You either prevent the other team from scoring more than you, which has been a little shaky, or you simply score more than them. You beat them 2-1, or you beat them 6-5. Either way, that's the basics of it. And unfortunately for the Carolina Hurricanes, they've needed more offensive output to get further, and they just have not had it consistently. And we'll see how some of these guys take that next step up. Or, hey, Carolina Hurricanes' biggest deficiency right now is I really don't know who their second line center is going to be on a consistent basis. You know, Kokoniemi's an experiment that I just don't see. I'm honestly surprised he's still on the team, but maybe his contract's just kind of hard to move. But I just, Jordan Stahl's just getting older. He's set where he is on his veteran line. There's been talk of Seth Jarvis maybe picking up that spot. Stankoven can be in that spot, but then you also get into a size issue, a heavy factor, which is another issue the Carolina Hurricanes have run into in the past. And that sometimes you put your best players on that top line, it kind of runs into a heaviness issue, especially with Seth Jarvis, who's also had some shoulder issues too. So they're a little wary of that. So I think they've got some things they still need to figure out. Although I recently saw Rod Brindamore on with an interview with my old colleague Adam Gold on the Canes Corner podcast, and Rod's kind of dropping some hints about, hey, you never know what we might do with that position. So they got money. We'll see what they end up doing, because we have to remember there is another trade deadline coming up, and Tom Dundon has been very adamant about making moves when he feels it's the right time.
All right, last one for you, because we are out of time, but we have time for this. Everybody we've brought on to our summer series, we've wanted to get your honest perspective of the Dallas Stars as they head into the 25-26 season from where you are. Doesn't mean you have to be an ardent follower of the Stars, which is the whole point. From your perspective, what do you think of the Stars going into the season?
What do I think of the Stars going into the season? Let's see. Was it January 6th, right? Is that the date? Is that when the Stars are going to be here?
Is that the? I don't have that. I'll have to look it up. I can do it real fast.
Where's my? Hold on a second. I apologize. I should have had this jotted down. I should know these.
When
things.
you said January 6th, it made me think of something else, and I didn't know where you were going with on that.
No, there might be a storm.
Carolina. Well, they're in Washington D.C. the next day. Go figure. But yes, they're in Raleigh on the 6th of January this year.
Okay, got it. That's the only thing that this area will be talking about from now until then.
Oh, the Mikko game.
Got this one. Okay. So we had a listener who bought one of these after the trade. He was so hyped. And after the trade, we just put it out there. If you because the Hurricanes did a buyback for this, right? And I said, no. There's we'll give you the jersey of your choice. So we went to the Cane store and we swapped it out. I was gonna frame that, but I'm definitely gonna wear it on January 6th at Lambeau Center. When Mikko's back in town. If you want to hear a guy lustily booed, be here January 6th.
Maybe that's a road trip we can make.
Oh my goodness. Can we go to Carolina in January? That would be fantastic.
Yep.
Hey, I can point you guys to the right breweries you guys can do your show from. We got a lot of great craft beer here in town. And I'm telling you, set it up and you guys can be here for what will be a very electric building.
That's one area I don't think I'll need any help in.
No, you usually sniff that out pretty well. Joe, the last time I was there, it was called the RBC Center, and Paul Maurice was the head coach for the second time.
Woo! Yeah, that's taking me back. I had more hair and no gray in my beard when that was happening.
Well, that's probably two of us then. So, but really appreciate you taking some time out today. It's so interesting to get other teams' perspectives, and with something as sensitive and emotional as the Rantanen deal, it was perfect to have you on to talk about it, because it's great for the Stars viewers to see what Carolina is still simmering about. So thank you.
Joe is.
Or at least Joe. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
I'm telling you right now, they're still simmering. Just saying.
I love it. All right, Joe. Thank you very much. There he goes. Joe Ovies.
Thanks, Joe.
Check him out on the Ovies and Giglio podcast in the Triangle area of Raleigh-Durham. And of course, Sean, you're this is, I believe, it for your week, but we'll be back after the Labor Day holiday sometime next week, correct?
Yes, I will. I am going off grid. I'm going into taking a trip Luds will be proud of this week, and we're going to go ride some sand dunes out along Lake Michigan this weekend. So that's what I'm doing this week. So
don't make him jealous. All right. So tomorrow it is another very interesting day for us here on the Other 31 on our podcast here, the DLS Stars podcast. We are going to have Belle Frazier, who's a beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune out in Salt Lake City, and Petey is coming back on. Steve Peters, who is a former NHL video coach and host of Inside the Coach's Room. We are going to talk about, Luds, the Utah Mammoth.
I like
Central Division 1 tomorrow. That's at 2:00 Central Time. Sam, Luds, myself, and TC, a.k.a. the composer of the Joel Klatt song. He'll be our producer not just today, but also tomorrow, right here on DLLS. So check it out.
We all silly like the mayor.